Now, in the world of ETFs that pay investors income on a weekly basis have gotten extremely popular over the last year or so, and honestly for good reason. Even though I personally am not a huge fan of what a lot of these weekly paying ETFs offer, specifically for my criteria, my investing strategy, etc., I even bought into a few of them just because how fun it is to get $1 or $2 in dividends or distributions on a weekly basis every Friday. Now, this entire idea of getting paid more frequently brings me back to my early days of investing. Around 8 or 9 years ago, I started buying shares of Realty Income, names like Main Street Capital, almost simply because they paid income on a monthly basis. Getting paid more income more frequently, especially when you're starting off, can not only potentially help you compound your portfolio a little bit quicker, but also is just a ton of fun and more or less a psychological tool to keep you investing and keep you interested. Now, in this video, we're going to go over a weekly paying ETF that not only offers investors like you and I income on a weekly basis, but is guaranteed more or less to have absolutely no NAV decay. I know it sounds pretty crazy, but this new ETF might be exactly the perfect ETF that might or might not have a spot for your portfolio depending on what you're looking for. So if you want to learn about this weekly paying ETF that has no NAV decay, then make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. My A to Z dividend investing ebook has helped countless dividend investors get started with their journey. And my custom dividend tracker that I'm constantly using here on the channel has also helped so many investors stay on track and allow them to see their dividend income in real time. Well, today I have another treat for you guys. I'm not only going to offer you my A to Z dividend investing ebook and the custom dividend tracker, but also just for a short limited time, I'm going to be adding in my brand new weekly dividend blueprint ebook to show you how you can get started with weekly dividend ETFs and add this into your investing strategy. This offer is not going to last long, so go ahead and click the first link down below in my description, and you're going to get both ebooks and the custom dividend tracker bundle. But like I said, please act fast because this won't be around for long. Now let's get back into the video. Now, the new weekly paying ETF that offers no NAV decay is an ETF that you might or might not have already heard about. Maybe you guys even own a few shares. Is going to be ticker symbol WEEK, which is absolutely awesome. It's the weekly T-bill ETF brought to us by Roundhill Investments. Now, Roundhill does have a lot of interesting ETFs, names like QDTE and XDTE ring a bell. But this ETF is very different. This ETF invests in 0 to 3 month US Treasury bills and seeks to pay weekly distributions to shareholders. Now, right off the bat, when you're talking about a bond ETF, this is going to be very, very low risk, at least generally speaking. But let's read on and understand a little bit more about what this ETF is, how it works, etc. It says overview, the Roundhill Weekly T-bill ETF, or WEEK, is a short-term Treasury bill ETF designed to pay weekly distributions of current income to shareholders. WEEK is the first of its kind ETF that targets a stable NAV week over week. WEEK is an actively managed ETF. Now, to learn even more, it says why WEEK, weekly distributions. And like I sort of mentioned during the intro, I don't really care who you are. You're probably going to want to get paid a little bit more frequently. I mean, who doesn't? It says WEEK seeks to pay distributions every week, offering a recurring income stream for shareholders. It also says cash-like alternative. WEEK provides exposure to US Treasury bills maturity between 0 to 3 months, providing an attractive vehicle for investors seeking capital preservation. Now, earlier I kind of said this ETF might or might not be something that some of you guys are looking for. If you aren't necessarily interested in buying or having any exposure to bonds or super stable, sort of low risk asset types in your portfolio, then maybe this is not going to be the right ETF for you. But for me personally, I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I always keep a portion of my portfolio in either cash or cash-like alternatives. For me personally, I a lot of times buy brokered CDs through the different brokerages that I use. And I've even bought into other different ETFs similar to this one, but absolutely none of them ever offer weekly income, which does make this ETF very, very interesting. Now, lastly, it says stable NAV. WEEK seeks to target a stable NAV week over week. Now, because of this ETF strategy, what it's really invested into, I mean, the stable NAV, that whole thing should be pretty easy to do. I mean, at least compared to a lot of the other weekly paying ETFs out there that invest in higher risk things and offer higher risk strategies. Now, the expense ratio for WEEK is going to be 0.19%, which might be a little bit on the higher end for what this ETF is offering, if you ask me. This ETF was just launched about a month and a half ago, already has 6 million in AUM. And as far as top holdings go, you guessed it, it is investing in US Treasuries across the board. Now, here's the interesting part. This ETF since inception so far has traded basically at $100 more or less per share, which at least so far has offered absolutely no NAV decay and has even offered some distributions. Now, this is why it's sort of like a cash or cash-like alternative, because let's say you have some side money in your portfolio and you want to earn more or less what treasuries are paying. Instead of just keeping that money in your portfolio, you could, of course, buy into WEEK and then get paid weekly distributions from that cash. Then always sell it off later on and basically buy and sell for the same amount. Now, as far as distributions go, so far, this ETF has in fact paid distributions every single week, just like the name of it shares. We're talking around 6 or 7 or 8 cents per share per week, it looks like. which based off of the math in my head, I think that does average something around a 4% yield more or less, which again makes sense because this ETF is going to pay you probably more or less what treasuries are paying. Now, lastly, to touch on once again who this ETF might or might not be for. Like I said, for me personally, I do always keep some cash or cash-like alternatives on the side of my portfolio, and I personally invest in CDs because generally speaking, sometimes CDs do pay a bit more than US Treasuries. But for me personally, for an investor that does like to keep some cash on the side and an investor that is honestly very infatuated with the weekly payout, I mean, I honestly think that it's a super fun, almost gimmick to get paid on a weekly basis. I don't care if it's the same exact amount, if it comes monthly or quarterly, getting paid income every single week is a ton of fun. So for me personally, because I do keep a lot of cash on the side, I sort of like to keep some dry powder in the portfolio in some sorts, in some shape or form. I do personally think that I would utilize an ETF like this one, especially when some of my brokered CDs may be mature, buy some shares a week, and just hold onto the shares until, of course, I need that money to buy some other assets. Now, with that being said, depending on where you're at in your investing journey, if you're not necessarily seeking capital preservation, like what this ETF is more or less offering to investors, then this ETF probably will not necessarily be super relevant for you. But if you're an investor who likes to keep some cash on the side, you want to get paid out weekly distributions, this ETF is one of the coolest ETFs and sort of a fun twist on investing in treasury bills in general. So now that we've been over the brand new weekly T-bill ETF, ticker symbol week, and I share with you guys what the ETF is, how it works, and who or who not it might be for. And lastly, I want to hear from you guys down below. Would you personally ever buy into shares a week for your portfolio? Let me know yes or no in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like in it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.